Welcome to another episode of LSVT Global's podcast, Think Big and Loud, where we share inspiring stories, expert insights, and engaging conversations, all designed to empower and uplift the lives of individuals with neurological conditions and those who love and support them. My name is Beth Peterson, and I'll be your host for the show today. And as some of you may know, October marks National Physical Therapy Month, at least here in the United States. And to help us celebrate this month, today's episode takes us into the inspiring world of Rock Steady Boxing, a groundbreaking program that's revolutionizing the fight against Parkinson's disease. And I'm thrilled to be joined by two phenomenal physical therapists today from Rock Steady Boxing, Dr. Ryan Cotton, the organization's president and CEO, and Dr. Connie Fiems, the organization's chief scientific officer. In this episode, we'll explore the fascinating journey of Rock Steady Boxing, from its humble beginnings to its current status as a global force in Parkinson's therapy. We'll also explore the unique synergy between Rock Steady Boxing and other therapy programs for Parkinson's, such as LSVT BIG. So Dr. Cotton and Dr. Fiems, thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to discuss the evolution of Rock Steady Boxing with you. All right, and Dr. Cotton, I think I'm going to start with you. Could you begin by giving us a broad overview of Rock Steady Boxing and its mission?
Yeah, thanks for having us, Beth. We're glad to be here, and LSVT Global has been such a great partner of Rock Steady over the years. Rock Steady started in 2006 from Scott Newman. Scott Newman was the Marion County prosecutor in Indianapolis, and he had young onset Parkinson's disease. And his disease progressed relatively quickly up to the point where he was, as Marion County prosecutor, which is Indianapolis, he had a very public-facing position. And as his disease progressed, he had trouble with his job. He had trouble with the computer. He had the infamous Parkinson's hand in the pocket, where he didn't want to show off his tremor. And so he progressed quickly and had a buddy who was an attorney and a former cop, who was also a Golden Gloves boxer. And his friend Vince asked Scott, he said, "Look, we got to do something for this." And so they started training with a boxer's regimen. And relatively quickly, his symptoms started to respond. And over 6 to 8 weeks, his symptoms were getting better, noticeable to his friends and colleagues. He was out to dinner one night with some colleagues, and they said, "Scott, what have you been doing that for your Parkinson's? You look a lot better." And he held out his hand like this across the dinner table, and he said, "Man, I've been boxing. I've been exercising with Vince, and ever since I started boxing, I've been rock steady." So there was the evolution of Rock Steady's name. And like I said, he was part of a young onset Parkinson's group. So he invited 6 people in this group. He said, "Hey, I don't know anything about this, but my symptoms are getting better with this type of exercise." And in 2006, there wasn't much in the way of scientific recommendations for exercise, but this group started boxing and their symptoms started improving, which was the genesis of what has today become Rock Steady Boxing and the curriculum that we've adapted from that original group to now serve the Rock Steady community around the world.
Wow, that's a pretty fascinating beginning to that, very inspirational. And how would you say that it's evolved since that inception? And then with that, I'd like to hear how each of your roles have contributed to that evolution. I'll start with you again, Dr. Cotton.
Yeah, it's evolved quite a bit. The original curriculum, what they started doing was simply based on how a boxer would normally train. And they found the response in the symptoms to be remarkable for the folks that were participating in what we now call high intensity interval training, right? So a boxer trains, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minute on, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minute on, back and forth, kind of the on and off with the intensity. Rock Steady Boxing curriculum today isn't just a boxing fitness curriculum. It's very specifically designed for people with Parkinson's disease. It's multimodal, it's strength, it's balance, it's endurance, it's agility, it's dual tasking, all within the curriculum. So what started as kind of a crazy idea in 2006 now is supported by a bunch of science saying, hey, this is how people with Parkinson's should be exercising. And there's no study that says that boxing is the key component. Boxing is our mechanism of delivery of that exercise. Boxing is fun. It has some swagger. It's cool for someone of a certain age to say, I'm going to the boxing gym, rather than as a physical therapist that's saying, oh, well, I'm going to physical therapy for my Parkinson's. Going to a boxing gym has a little more swagger to it. My evolution with the organization, the exercise component started in 2006. In 2008, 2009 was a board of directors was developing, and I was asked to be on the board of directors as a physical therapist that I could look at and give some guidance regarding the exercise. I served on the board for about a decade. During that time, I was a physical therapy practice owner here in Indianapolis. In late 2018, I sold my shares in the practice. In 2020, I came on to Rocksteady initially as the chief scientific officer. 2020 was the era of COVID, and we were pivoting our training, so it was all online virtual training for a while, and I was part of the development of that. And then in 2022, I was asked to move into the position of chief executive officer. Clearly, the chief scientific officer role got a big upgrade when they brought Connie out. They moved me out, moved Connie in, so they raised the bar with the chief scientific officer, but I've been in the role of chief executive officer since October of 2022. The organization has changed. In the early days, we were one gym in Indianapolis, and our board of directors was in Indianapolis, and we were serving the gym in Indianapolis. Now we have north of 800 affiliate locations around the world. Our mission is to equip and empower the affiliate owners and the coaches around the world to serve their community. So the evolution of the organization has gone from one gym to a global approach. And how do we get our Rocksteadies established in communities around the world to serve the Parkinson's community where they live?
Wow, yeah, that's quite some growth there. That's amazing that you've spread so worldwide. And Dr. Fiems, I'd love to hear, I know he gave you a nice introduction as your role in Chief Scientific Officer. And so how does your role contribute to the evolution and the program in general?
I came on a little bit after Ryan when I was working on my dissertation for my doctorate at University of Indianapolis. Stephanie Combs Miller is a longtime colleague of mine in the Indianapolis area in physical therapy. So her and I put our heads together to come up with some potential research questions that might involve Rocksteady boxing. And that's how I got a toe in the door with the headquarters gym here in Indianapolis. So looking at the outcome measures that had already been established, I think Dr. Coombs Miller, probably Ryan, had some thoughts on what the trainers here should be assessing in order to make sure they're safe in their group class, and then to also assign boxers to the appropriate group class based on their abilities. So after I did a little bit of my own research, I was bit by the bug, I guess, and the coaches here asked if I would stay on as a part of the medical advisory committee. So I'm not sure, Ryan would probably be able to tell what year that got started, but I was more consultative at that time. So they might, I remember they asked to learn more about how to teach falls and floor transfers. So I came in and worked with the coaches on that. Other topics like how to adapt the program for people with atypical Parkinson's or Parkinson's plus. They asked about tips and tricks on how to adapt things for those folks. So I started kind of consultatively, and then I joined the board of directors. And once things kind of evolved over time, and Ryan took the CEO position, I thought the CSO position was a good fit with my background. So here I am.
Oh, great. Yeah, it sounds like you were a great fit for the job then. And can you tell us what are some of the key components of a typical rock steady boxing class?
Sure. So Ryan already mentioned that rock steady boxing is really so much more than boxing. I think when physical therapists approach me at conferences with skepticism, it's usually, why on earth would you have someone with Parkinson's box? Because isn't that all anterior chain, flex posture? And I, try to explain to them that, it's an adapted boxing training regimen, first of all. And the adapted part is where we really look at the symptoms of Parkinson's and see how we might modify the boxing training. So for instance, for posture and footwork, those are heavily adapted. A boxer would get in what's called a Philly shell and put their head down and round their shoulders. And whereas we teach an upright shoulders back position and forward facing position with a wide stance. So the actual boxing regimen is adjusted and adapted, but we also integrate their entire training regimen, which includes cardio and strength training and functional fitness and balance and agility and flexibility. So all those components are put into the workout. And then, as Ryan said, it's delivered in kind of a high intensity interval training method. So it's not all elevated high intensity. We do have those ebbs and flows for intensity. And then last, I would say what makes us special, I think what every physical therapist that sees our gym would say is, wow, the boxing is great. It's fun to hit stuff. But they really catch on to the culture and the social connections that happen in the gym. And to do that, we infuse fun throughout the whole program, and we infuse celebration. And you have a speech therapy background, so a big part of our classes throughout the entire class is voicing and breathing. So that's throughout the program. So, yeah.
So, and then is the program ongoing, or is it for a certain amount of time?
Good question. It's ongoing. So part of my role is also looking at outcomes. So every boxer is assessed when they first come in, and then we reassess every boxer once a year. And so folks can join at any point. There's no stop and start to the program. When they first join, we try to connect them with an experienced boxer or a mentor so they can have that social connection, but also get a little bit of guidance.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Well, and how does Rock Steady Boxing complement therapy programs like LSVT BIG?
I'm so glad you asked.
Me too.
Well, that's another piece that both Ryan and I were called in on early when they started training other coaches and affiliate gyms. I think both he and I were asked to speak to the coaches on how we can integrate clinicians and healthcare providers. And, that early contact was to promote a collaborative model of maybe just starting with having clinicians come in your gym and offer checkups or real kind of quick and dirty assessments if they had a concern, because what we like to call our boxers is athletes, right? So therapists come into play when for probably what we would call episodic plan of care. So they get knee injuries, hip injuries, shoulder injuries, they have back pain. So all the things that an athlete would have in terms of, an acute injury or a flare-up could come up. But physical therapists can also be engaged with our boxers through a maintenance plan of care. That's more where I come in as a neurologic physical therapist. We hope clinicians are integrating maintenance plan of care where they're reassessing every 6 months, for sure every year, updating, upgrading your assessment, advising your patients on what they need to do when they're not in the clinic. And we hope that includes going to rock steady boxing. Ryan,
great.
do you have anything to add on clinical collaborations?
Yeah, to me, I think there's just a continuum of care, and this comes from when I was a practitioner. The coaches at the gym would see a fighter that needed a little more personalized care, and then that was a referral to me as the physical therapist, where I could provide the one-on-one training. Your LSVT folks who are experts in Parkinson's disease can look one-on-one at that individual and give them a treatment plan to address specific things that they find that might be inhibiting their participation in the gym. And likewise, when a therapist is treating somebody and there needs a continuum of care of ongoing exercise, that referral from the clinic to the gym becomes this continuum of care where folks can work in and out of the gym and in and out of the therapy professional's office. To really, the winner there is everybody. The therapist gets service, gets patients, the gym is seeing clients, and really the person with Parkinson's is getting a continuum of care of service by professionals on both sides, on both ends of that curriculum.
Yeah, that's great. My next question you might have just kind of answered, but I'll see if you wanted to add anything. If you've noticed any enhanced benefits when combining some type of therapy such as LSVT BIG with rock steady boxing.
Yeah, for sure. There's, I think, for the most part, and this is a gross generalization, which can get you in trouble, but for the most part, rock steady participants participate at the level of intensity of exercise when they're in the gym. And without a home program, a program that they can integrate and do at home, which they might get from an LSVT therapy professional, that really balances out that they're not just exercising at the gym, that they have stuff that they can do at home to continue and gain extra benefit from putting the gym exercise and the therapy program together to address their symptoms, both in the gym and at home. And clearly, I mean, just like we don't own boxing, we collaborate with lots of other fitness, wellness, rehab professionals. And in our curriculum, in any given day, an LSVT professional is going to see shades of LSVT BIG. LSVT LOUD is part of what goes on in our curriculum. Big movements, exaggerated movements, loud movements, voice, projection, all of those things are integrated into our curriculum because it's all essential for people with Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, that's exciting. So that increased amplitude that we work on so much in LSVT, you see that a lot, it sounds like, with rock steady boxing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as the basic boxing punch, which is the jab, which is what Connie was talking about. Traditionally, a jab is a quick and then get it back to protect yourself. Well, our Rocksteady curriculum, we've in LSVT terms, we've increased the amplitude of that, where it's a big, long jab with a bunch of trunk rotation to treat some of that trunk rigidity. So specifically, that's one example. In the boxing, we've increased the amplitude of that, so it's not everyday boxing, it's Parkinson's boxing, to specifically address the symptoms of Parkinson's disease.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, and you mentioned now it sounds like there's over 800 affiliates worldwide. What factors do you think have contributed to that rapid expansion of Rocksteady Boxing?
Yeah, we started teaching other people the Rocksteady curriculum in late 2012, early 2013. And Leslie Stahl did a piece on CBS Sunday Morning. Her husband had Parkinson's disease, and he went to a gym in New York City. So Leslie did a piece on what in the world he was doing in this gym to fight back against his Parkinson's disease. Which once that piece aired, until COVID, our phone didn't stop ringing with people wanting to implement it. Like I said, when we started developing the curriculum, exercise was kind of recommended for people with Parkinson's. And when that's the nature of exercise for Parkinson's, and along comes this group that says, well, we're boxing for Parkinson's, that's going to get people's attention. So I think just the kind of out-of-the-box approach, which thank goodness is now supported by a bunch of scientific evidence, right? So what was crazy at the time is now supported with a bunch of evidence. So the excitement of that, and then Connie alluded to it before, it's the community that develops in that gym of people fighting their Parkinson's together, but also so supportive of one another and sharing one another's challenges and solutions and tips and tricks of how they get through their day with Parkinson's disease. We kind of joke as the therapist, right? Like we look on, is it the endurance? How long does it have to be? What do the exercise needs to include? Well, at some point we might find that the most important thing is just being part of the community that's together. So, which we'll be glad to promote as well, because it happens in our gyms all the time.
Oh yeah, that's great to hear. Dr. Fiems, I'm going to pass it back to you, and if you can talk about the impact of Rocksteady Boxing on participants and how it's been documented over the years, and then kind of with that, if you can give us a high-level overview of the research that's been done supporting boxing in Parkinson's.
Well, I think the seminal work that really looked at intensive exercise was by Jay Alberts out of the Cleveland Clinic. He looked at cycling and the intensity of cycling and forced intense exercise in people with Parkinson's. And that really, I think, opened the door for the exercise community to maybe push folks a little bit more than they thought, but also to really help us all see that, just community-based walking, getting your 10,000 steps is great, but it's probably not really intense enough to see changes in the brain, right? And to slow disease progression. So he was kind of at the forefront with that. And then, of course, along came the Sparks 2 and 3 studies that looked at treadmill training by Margaret Schenkman. And Sparks 3, I think, has like 24, 25 sites. It's still going on, but they're looking at comparing moderate to high intensity walking training. And are looking at all kinds of outcomes from mobility to fitness level to quality of life changes to brain changes and neuroplasticity. So we have those folks those heavy hitters, so to speak, looking at exercise and Parkinson's from a longitudinal standpoint, and looking at those aspects of exercise and fitness. With regard to rock steady boxing, we've had our share of studies. The foundational work, we already mentioned Stephanie Combs-Miller. She did a couple studies in 2011 and 2013, some randomized control trials that really found better balance, decreased falls, improved walking, and then some other studies came along. Let's see, I'm looking at a cheat sheet here. So we had a really big qualitative study. It looked like it had 2,000 boxers, and it was by Larson in 2021. And the Rocksteady program uses the PDQ 39, an interview questionnaire format, and it looks at all aspects of quality of life, from ADLs to mobility, but also depression, cognition, social life, that kind of thing. And it found a significant improvement in quality of life. So that was pretty phenomenal. We've had a few other studies looking at just overall function and cognition and dual tasks, that kind of thing. So we've been fortunate to have folks look at rock steady boxing, but then also there are some other published studies on non-contact boxing that maybe don't mimic us but resemble what we put together.
Okay.
So yeah,
it's exciting to have that research to support what you're doing, and yeah, I just love how it all comes together. I'd love to hear, maybe if you want to start, and then if Dr. Cotton has a story too, like a success story or a memorable story that you have from a rock steady boxing athlete.
That one's hard. That one's hard. I don't know. Ryan, what do you have? That one's hard for me.
Yeah, I've got a good one. There is a young man who was retired military guy, and he had young onset Parkinson's, and he showed up for his assessment with Rocksteady Boxing, and he was still in his 40s when he was doing his assessment. And on a good day, he was on a cane. On a bad day, he was on a walker. When he would come to class, he would show up early because he was a relatively young man and a former retired military guy. He would show up early and hide his assistive device because he was proud, as he should be. And this young man went from showing up on the cane or the walker and he was frankly ticked off about his diagnosis. He was not happy about it. He was not in a happy place. But he started participating, which engaged him exactly how he needed to be engaged, right? Like an athlete, our instructors we call coaches, which gives them a little privilege to get after somebody. Just like any coach in a sport, right? If you're not doing something well, coach will let you know. And coach has high expectations. So coach had high expectations of this young man, which is exactly what he needed. He needed a boot in his backside. He needed challenged. He needed respected and treated like an adult, an athlete who had a challenge but needed guidance to overcome that challenge. Within 6 to 12 months of starting the program, he'd retired his walker and his cane and was participating in half marathons.
Oh my gosh.
Not to mention his outlook and his point of view had changed because that coach said, look, I understand this is a terrible card you've been dealt, but it's in your hand. Now let's do something about it. And he wasn't coddled. He was challenged and respected. And he met that challenge and made an unbelievable difference in the trajectory of his disease.
Yeah, that's a pretty dramatic improvement. That's amazing. Dr. Fiems, did you want to jump in, or do you want me to move on?
How can I follow that?
It's true. That's a pretty hard one to follow. All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Dr. Cotton, if you can let us know in the audience what advice you might give to someone living with Parkinson's who might be hesitant to start an exercise program like this, especially if they don't consider themselves particularly athletic.
Yeah, that story comes from personal experience. I was involved in this organization starting in about 2008, 2009. My father was diagnosed with Parkinson's about a year or two later. So I was involved in the organization before my dad was diagnosed. My father didn't have an athletic bone in his body. When growing up, if I was playing catch or if I was shooting baskets, I was doing it with my mom, not my father. And after my dad was diagnosed, he agreed to be a control subject in any study that we ever did, because he wasn't going to go to that boxing gym. Long story short, he eventually went. I didn't have to convince him. He went on his own. He eventually went and immediately became part of that family, right? He was part of that community that we're talking about, where he became the guy that would check in on people that weren't there, that would encourage one another when they were there. And boxing's not for everybody, and there's not scientific evidence that says boxing needs to be for everybody. But exercise needs to be A, for everybody, B, especially if you're someone with Parkinson's disease. There's way too much evidence out there now that says you have to be exercising, you have to be exercising at moderate time intensity, and you have to be doing it regularly. So to me, the message to the people with Parkinson's is find what exercise fits you, whether that's ping pong or tango or dancing or boxing or whatever the mechanism of delivery of exercise is. Find what works for you, that you can engage with, that you can continue, because this is part of your medical regimen for your disease, for the future. So find something you like and stick with it, and stick with it regularly.
Well, great. Well, and for those who are interested, where can they go to learn more about Rock Steady Boxing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like we said, there's 800 Rock Steady gyms around the world. Hopefully there's one in your community. Go to rocksteadyboxing.org, and you can search. There's a map function. You can zoom in on the map and find some in your location, or you can search by your zip code. Find a Rock Steady location near you. Any coach will be glad for you to duck in and see what goes on there. It sounds a little rowdy and crazy, because it is a little rowdy and crazy. So stick your head in, observe, see what's going on. If there's not one around you, you can contact us at headquarters through the website, and we'll be glad to work with you to establish a Rock Steady in your community.
Great. Well, it sounds like a wonderful organization to be a part of. So thank you both for sharing your story. And I'm just going to wrap us up here today with some credit. So again, a big thank you to our special guests today, Dr. Ryan Cotton and Dr. Connie Fiems at Rock Steady Boxing. And the theme song that you're hearing play during the podcast is called Think Loud for Parkinson's by Kindred Spirit and Leo Sayer. The song and video were inspired by LSVT LOUD speech treatment and were developed to raise awareness for Parkinson's worldwide. It's available for purchase on iTunes and Amazon, with proceeds being split between UK charity Cure Parkinson's and the Parkinson's Foundation in the US. A big thanks to our production team for making the podcast possible at CS Design Studios. And as Dr. Cotton mentioned, if you're interested in learning more about Rock Steady Boxing or to find a location near you, you can visit their website at rocksteadyboxing.org. If you're interested in learning more about LSVT LOUD speech therapy or LSVT BIG therapy, or to locate a clinician in your area, you can go to our website at lsvtglobal.com. And we encourage you to click the subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode. And we look forward to thinking big and loud with you again next time. So thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah!